Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Bobby, and we're trying something new here at Tech360, and we're calling it The Other Side. And this is a video where we talk, different collaborators, friends of the channel, about all the same things we talk to you guys about here. Cameras, laptops, phones, tablets, just tech in general. Anyway, we're with a very special guest today. This is...
Michael Josh of GadgetMatch.
Hello.
Hi, Bobby.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well.
Now, you came from New York just to hang out with us, didn't you?
Sorta.
Sorta?
Sorta. Actually, I've come to use your green screen to shoot a video.
But because we have the best green screen this side of the equator, right?
Definitely. Yeah. But I also hear you have a new studio, so.
We do. We're at the new Funan Mall here in Singapore, of course, and I mean, you've been in Singapore before.
I have.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived here for a good chunk of the last 2 years. But yeah, I've never been to your new studio yet, so it's a treat to come and see everything going on
and
here.
It's a treat to have you here with us because, just to chat with you about tech, because you're in New York, you're right where all the action's happening, and just like to get your thoughts on things that are out there.
It's such an awesome time to be covering tech because there's so much happening. There are pros and cons. Of course, the cons is that you never can really get a break or rest. Yeah. It's the second half of the year, which officially starts the next wave of flagship smartphones, new phones to come.
That's right, because coming up in a couple weeks, actually less than that, we've got
2 weeks from now?
2 weeks, we got the Note 10.
The Note 10.
Because we're shooting this, by the way, in case you're watching now, this is July. I don't even
July.
What date is it, Kai? What date is it, Kai Hong?
I think it's July 19th.
July 19th. There we go, July 19th. So, in a couple weeks' time, we got the Note 10.
There's a Note 10. There's a new phone from Asus, a new gaming phone, the RG Phone 2.
But didn't they just launch one recently?
Yes. It's just about to be announced.
So this is the new version of that?
The new version is coming up before the Note 10.
Have you had your hands on it?
Yes, I did. I can tell you. I can spill some of the beans today.
Okay.
And then you have the Pixel 4.
Right. Have you seen that yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
You got to ask Michael Josh's questions because you get your hands on these products.
Technically, I can't really, even if I did see it, I don't think I'm allowed to say it yet, but I haven't. Of course, there's a new iPhone coming out as well.
Yeah, that I'm excited
have you seen all those models going around?
One looks like a Rimowa luggage. It's like, I don't know if there's just sort of like some...
I think it's the one with the square camera.
I think
that's pretty much what it's going to look like.
Square, really?
Yeah. It's kind of like... It's out of place, almost?
It's like a Mate 20 in the corner.
But, I mean, I love the iPhone camera, and I can't wait to see, what this big, chunky thing is going to do to it.
I mean, obviously, I probably have triple cameras on that now.
Triple cameras.
Obviously, maybe higher megapixel, more dynamic range.
All of that jazz.
Yeah.
There's a new Snapdragon processor, the 855 Plus.
Interesting.
So I think most of these phones are going to run that. It's going to be faster, better, always better and faster.
It's always better and faster.
It's not like we haven't had a new, new phones come out over the last few months.
I want to hear somebody say my phone is slower and worse battery life than the year before. I just want to hear one company say that once and just for fun.
Right.
It'll never happen, but I just want to hear us happen.
What's really exciting about this ROG phone? 6,000 milliamp hour battery. So that's PUBG it's actually reasonably sized. Still, I don't know how they managed to fit it in. It has 2 USB-C ports. So you know how gamers play like this? You can plug it into the side so that you're still playing. So 2 ports, still has a headphone jack, but still somehow managed to squeeze in a 6,000 milliamp hour battery. That's interesting because PUBG, like 7 hours of PUBG.
Wow.
But for me, if I don't play PUBG, does that mean 2 days of heavy use?
Right. Now, what about the refresh rate on the screen?
120 hertz AMOLED.
Ooh.
So, and then 1 millisecond response time. So, I mean, in terms of, I haven't seen the Note 10 display yet. And you know how Samsung always has the best display.
Of course.
But now with all that fast refresh rate, when you see it, you don't really want to go back. Like the OnePlus 7 Pro, I think was 90 hertz.
Yeah.
And we've seen 120 from the Razer phone.
Right.
But this is the first time that it's on an AMOLED panel. So you have the rich blacks, nice colors.
I mean, that's why they need a 6,000 milliamp battery, possibly.
Yeah, that too. Okay. That too. But I think it's interesting to see. You look at users and try to figure out what they really want. You ask yourself what you want, and as a journalist, our needs or our expectations are are maybe up there.
It's a little unrealistic at times. Yeah,
yes,
it is.
Sometimes I ask myself, are we pushing the industry in the right direction? Because I kind of like to blame ourselves, because remember when we were reviewing phones, we're like, oh yeah, the screen is not so bezel-less, the bezels are huge. Yeah. And then, so phone companies gave us bezel-less phones with these huge notches.
Yes.
And then we were like, oh, notch, it's so ugly. And then they gave us a pop-up camera, and they were like, oh no, it's mechanical, it's gonna get broken. And so
we're never happy.
We're never happy. And I don't really know if that's what the users want.
Actually,
right?
I think, just like probably, and you're right, I think we overanalyze things to the point. And in a lot of ways, we make the users more confused of what to buy.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, if it's going to break, what if?
Yeah.
And then what happens now? We got the cameras that are going to be underneath the display. That's the new thing. So there's
Were you at Mobile World Congress in Shanghai?
Yeah.
Oppo showed off their under display camera, which still needs to be special. There's a lot of magic going on.
Right,
It needs to have a bigger opening just so that it can kind of deal with that, whatever, the tint on that display.
So it's work in progress.
But we're getting there. We're getting there, but I don't know if that necessarily is where the investment, the engineering dollar should be spent on.
I agree.
I would love to see research in longer battery life.
I agree, 100%.
Right?
100%.
And I would rather not have these gimmicks if that means we can keep costs low. Because for me, a feature that is probably the most important of all to users is the price.
Yeah.
And I see users, you know, I have a friend asking me, hey, is it time to update my phone? Should I update my iPhone 6? And I was like, wow.
Yes.
And that is such an average, but you see users holding on to their 4, 5-year phones, not wanting to upgrade. And the reason is, $1,000 is just too much to ask for.
It is. I mean, here in Singapore, I mean, last year I think we started seeing the $1,500, the $2,000 phones plus, depending on the, and it's just, I think it's to the point now where it used to be back in the day, as technology got better, it got cheaper.
Yes.
Now it's just getting more and more expensive. And then you're going, well, now do I buy a laptop?
Yes.
Or do I buy a phone?
Right.
And I feel like these companies need to take a step back and go, wait a second. Everyone's making profit. No matter if you sell that phone for $1,000 or $2,000, you're still making profit on it. It's time to dial it back a bit, and that's where I think where the kind of that mid-range, that flagship mid-range came into play.
This flagship killer.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you have companies like OnePlus who made a name out of the flagship killer. They've kind of abandoned that. The OnePlus 7 Pro is already expensive. The phone that's getting a lot of buzz these days is the Redmi K20 Pro from Xiaomi. Yeah. Because of its top-of-the-line specs for this really good price tag. I also think about, you know, we're so fixated on the spec sheet. But I also don't believe that, you know, it's all about the experience.
I agree.
And the Pixel 3a, is it available in Singapore?
It is available, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Because for me, that really is the game changer.
Right.
Because in terms of camera performance, it shoots as great as the Pixel 3 for less, but without the high-end processor. Right. So it shows us, which is something that Apple has always preached about for the longest time. You know, Apple doesn't talk about RAM. It doesn't talk about specs as much.
No, they don't. Except their Bionic or their Supersonic or whatever processor
names,
they have.
But you know, which is a great thing to think about. You don't need all of these great specs as long as you can deliver a great experience. And so for me, my challenge to phone companies is really think about how you can deliver that flagship experience for less.
Speaking of which, what did you think about the 10R?
Wait.
I mean, that's sort of Apple's, because we're talking about Apple for a second, and that's sort of like Apple's, you know, mid-range phone.
It's hard because I love my iPhone XS Max so much.
Yeah.
And so when I see them side by side, I can feel the difference.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the average user will care as much.
Right.
And I think the problem is, as tech journalists, we always have a point of comparison, whether that's a TV. But I mean, do you take home a Samsung TV and an LG TV and sit in your living room and say, which one is better?
It would be nice to do that, but I don't get that opportunity.
And the same thing with smartphones, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have the luxury of taking home 2 iPhones.
No,
so I
true.
think, as it is, as a standalone device, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, because obviously photography is a big aspect in smartphones.
Yes.
Everything's about photography, computational photography, AI. Now we get into this mirrorless world, this battle that's going on in the photography world. You know, I mean, they're saying the camera sales are dropping on this and that, but I don't know. I think there's just this battle happening. What are your thoughts on the mirrorless world?
About time, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, for the longest time, well, I'm a full frame snob.
Yeah.
So I've always, you know, believed in full frames, but at the same time, it was only until the A7, the Sony Alpha series came out with their full frame mirrorless that I was like, okay, I'm willing to bite the bullet. It was sort of affordable, but also like so much lighter than a DSLR. And Sony's just had that market captured for the longest time. I didn't understand why it took forever for Nikon and for Canon to follow suit. But here they are, they're in the race, and that only means that we can have a great competition now.
It's going to be very interesting happening right now because, I mean, Sony, of course, has been kind of dominating the mirrorless market per se, but actually it was Leica that was in the mirrorless market kind of before them in a sense. You know, I mean, like with that, with the, you know, with the M's. But no one ever talks about that. They always talk about the three: Mean, Nikon, Canon, but you know, and now Panasonic. But I think it's interesting because I mean, I like the Sony cameras, but for me, I miss that emotional attachment that, you know, like when you get in photography, like there's certain cameras you pick up, you just go, I love shooting with this thing. And with the Sonys, I'm not getting that yet. Now, maybe the A7R IV will change that for me.
I'm a Sony fan, so
I know.
I'm a Sony fan, but it's true. I think even with the DSLRs back in the day, when I would recommend one, I would always tell my friends, go to a store, pick each of them up, and then see how you feel. You're right. There has to be that emotional, whether it's the sound of the click, right, to the feel of the body,
the grip,
the grip. It all kind of matters. I do love my Sony cameras. I've also invested a lot in the lenses and the ecosystem. I'm still waiting for the A7S Mark III, and we had this conversation earlier. And you know, there's so many rumors why it's delayed. Why has it been 3 years, 4 years now?
It's been a while, actually. Longer than you would think for Sony, right?
And Sony's been updating their models quite quickly, and then we saw the A7 Mark III, A7R Mark III. So
and now the R4.
Yes, and now the R4. Like, where's the A? I was tweeting the other day. This is not the camera I was waiting for.
Nobody was. Everybody was expecting the A7S III. They thought that's going to be the camera they're launching.
I hear it's delayed till September, but I think it really is because they're waiting to see what Canon and Nikon are going to bring, because they have updates coming up as well. So they want to be on top of the game. They want to have an edge over everybody. So they're waiting for everybody to announce first.
And the reality of it is that Sony sells the sensors to most camera companies. So they do sell to Nikon. So they know what Nikon has coming up. Canon-wise, this is where I've heard mixed things. I've heard that they buy Canon sensors, but then I also hear that Canon makes their own sensors.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure on that as well. I'm not sure on that as well. But there has been that rumor of that high-resolution Canon mirrorless camera, and maybe Sony want to beat them to the punch.
What are you looking for in a camera? Like, because I want my A7 to have all the A7S to have those new touchscreen features, the faster autofocus. I would love built-in ND filters.
Okay, if you
6K shooting.
Yeah, if you haven't used the updated firmware on the A9, try that. Autofocus is on another level with Sony.
Right.
That's on a completely another level. For me, it's interesting because I'm not a videographer per se, but I'm getting more into videography, especially doing
videos,
work, this stuff. But I've always been in photography, so you're a full frame snob, I'm a medium format snob. I love medium format. But I also see where it's going now with 4K, and I actually see, okay, I think 6K is overkill, to be frank with you. I mean, you can downsample and all that kind of stuff, but barely people's laptops are able to handle 4K as it is right now, unless you want to spend $7,000, $8,000 on a laptop. So I feel like there's this, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just not syncing yet. It's not, the technology's not syncing yet. So I'm 4K 60, I'm more than happy with. Full frame, higher bit rate, which I feel Sony needs to improve on. Canon knocked it out of the park with the 1DX. As a DSLR, the video on that's phenomenal. But I kind of want something that's got a great grip, but a great dynamic range. I feel like the Sony A7R IV hit most of what I wanted in a camera for full frame, except on the 4K, but I think that's the limitations of the sensor. And I would hope that Sony fixes their menu system. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
No, that's fine.
I need a degree.
I would love a better remote system because I need an Android phone connected to NFC. I can do the control. I use that as my monitor.
Right.
But I can't tweak any of the settings. So I would love to be able to like do that.
Yeah.
Get all my controls remotely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have a feeling the dark horse of the year is going to be Panasonic.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, there's been already they've won a number of awards on the S1, the S1R, and the S1H coming out.
Yeah.
But their prices are a little bit above what everybody else is at, so everybody's like, oh, do I want to go for that? Do I go for the Sony A7 III or the Sony now A7R4?
I would love. I mean, the GH5 series.
Yeah.
Has a lot of great features that I would love to have on my A7S.
But you got to go full frame. You got to go full frame.
Yes. So if they do a full frame version of that, might.
They
you're
do.
right.
That's the S1R.
Yeah.
That's the S1. The S1H now is 6K.
Yeah.
So that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
I just feel like Panasonic needs to tweak their pricing a little bit to be a bit more competitive in the market.
Yeah.
And they got themselves a winner. Canon, I'm excited. I want to see a full frame, high resolution mirrorless system because the lenses are some of the best in the market.
Yeah.
But we're getting an RP. We don't need the RP yet. We need the 5DSR version.
This is, I can see the passion in your voice here. Yeah.
Anyway, in the medium format.
Yeah. So it's so, what's so confusing?
Do you shoot medium format?
No, and it's so confusing to users because full frame sounds bigger and better than because it's medium, but I always have to kind of explain full format, then you have the full frame, then you have the medium format. It's so confusing. Shoot
with medium format, grab the Fuji GFX 100, even the 50R, or even the Hasselblad. You get hold of the Hasselblad, right? Because you're in New York. Hasselblad's office, and you could go over there, grab it. Shoot with it. Image quality alone.
But then again, I'm just going to put it on Instagram.
It doesn't matter. I thought the same thing too. I thought, oh, it's Instagram, you're never going to see it. You can see the difference. The tonality in the face, the graduation in the shadows is beautiful.
And then do you do still a lot of post-processing on Lightroom?
You can, but you don't have to do so much.
Right.
I mean, Hasselblad's colors I like because right out of camera raw, it's really, really good. Fujifilm's is also good as well. But I mean, you don't have to do that much. It's beautiful.
In terms of smartphone, do you think as smartphone technology gets better and better, do you think we're going to get to the point where you're happy to leave your camera at home when you travel?
Okay, I'm a bit of a camera snob, so I'm going to say no.
No,
because I feel like obviously you can only put so much of a sensor size inside of a camera phone.
Yeah.
And there's still a larger sensor which gives you a lot more information, a lot more detail.
Agreed.
So I'm going to say no, but I think for point and shoots, I give them another year or two and they're gone. It's going to be, it'll be APS-C or full frame or medium format. The 1-inch sensors will go away.
Yeah.
You know, the point and shoots, they're gone. They're gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I see the same thing too. Yeah. And it's really all about that software plus hardware now.
Oh yeah.
My God,
Google has done an amazing job.
Yeah, that's why the Pixel, I mean, even with their single camera setup, is still leaps and bounds just ahead because of all that algorithm, right?
You know the downside about Android phones and editing photos, and I don't know if you know, because you use everything, right? Have you ever noticed that, and then I always thought about doing a video about this one time, but I thought the fanboys would just like eat me apart in the comments, is that you have better software and iOS is so much better for editing photos than Android is. Even if you have Lightroom and Lightroom.
Be very careful.
I know, I have to be.
But no, but your apps on iOS, don't kill me, are probably better than Android across the board, whether that's games. Instagram is the easiest example. If you have both phones, sometimes, even if I take the photo on an Android phone, I will email it to my iPhone because I can't Bluetooth it.
True.
So that I can post it on Instagram on the iPhone. Instagram stories. And I think that's another conversation for another day. But the fragmentation of Android is really its weakest point.
Agreed.
Because the screen size, the display aspect ratios are different, the screen sizes are different, and so even that alone kind of like gets in the way of developing one proper app. So of course, developmental costs are higher. It's hard to kind of just optimize for so many different phones. So you're never going to get that same. So there is value in this controlled ecosystem.
There is.
iOS apps are so much more robust. And then you think about things like WWDC. And people don't really care about all these developer conferences. Every brand has a developer conference now. Facebook has one. Google has one.
They do.
They did one in China.
Are they?
Was it Baidu Create?
Are they doing one? Okay.
Yeah. Huawei has one coming up, and then of course Apple has one. But so it's of course to encourage their developers to develop for the platform. But Apple really thinks beyond that, creating a language, a UI that makes it easier for the developers. So even the support system that Apple creates for its developers gives them such a huge advantage. And it's something that a lot of us don't really talk about.
No.
But it needs, and it's hard to measure, but that is part of what makes iOS. I sound like an Apple fanboy here, no, but that's what makes, that's the intangible that makes using an iPhone great. Is because of that ecosystem that they've built, including the apps.
I mean, that's actually one of the reasons why I stuck with iOS for so long now. Recently is and I mean, I use them all, of course, because we have to test different phones, but because photography is such a big part of my life now, and the apps are just so well made that I can edit. You can actually zoom in on an image closer than you can on Android. Actually try it. If you don't believe me, take an Android phone, take an iPhone, and zoom in. The Android phone stops at a certain point. The iPhone, you just can keep going. You're like, what's this? And all that helps in that post-processing. But you mentioned something, and this is obviously a hot topic in tech, Huawei.
Yes. Yes, I know where you're going.
I mean, are we going to see a Mate 30? Is it going to be Android? Is it going to be...
It's a very good question. I would love to see a Mate 30.
Yeah.
And it's well, there's two topics. There's two issues surrounding this, right? One of it is security. Yeah. And which might be another reason to prefer an iOS device over an Android device. Right. Is because of Apple's stance on privacy and security. True. And I think these days it's something that none of us should take for granted. Right. As we live on the cloud, as we begin to process, we rely on the computing on the cloud, and as we rely on just putting our data out there, we have to be concerned about our security. You're right. This Huawei issue, while I understand where people might find reasons for concern, Huawei being a Chinese company, it is kind of sad because as a tech journalist, we have to be fans of innovation. Right. And I've been one of the reasons why I have a soft spot for Huawei is because I really appreciate all the advances that they've been doing. They did a lot. I know the Note's coming up, and Samsung, and I remember Samsung's golden years when they were, especially the Note. The Note would always be the phone to look out for because that's where all their high-end latest tech would come out. Yes. But I don't know if it was around the Note 7, that battery crisis, but they kind of slowed down a bit. And that gap that they left in the industry. Huawei came right in. Huawei came right in, and then when we were seeing iterative updates from many smartphone manufacturers, Apple included, Huawei was just blowing us away with this innovation in smartphone tech. Handheld, using AI to be able to do a long exposure shot at night. Honestly, that was a game changer. Right? I mean, not even our DSLRs can do that. That was a game changer. And I felt like with the P20 Pro, they nailed it with that. Their low light is still top notch. Even without that long exposure, is amazing. Yeah. And then 2 years in a row, they've been able to, from the I think it was the P20, and then we saw that in the Mate 20, P20, P30, and they just continue to outdo themselves. And then now I feel like they've just been, thrown a curveball, and their future is in the balance. And it's so sad because based on what's the latest developments and what we've heard from President Trump himself, it is a negotiating chip. It is, actually. I think that's what it is. I think more than anything else. I mean, because leverage. Because if they end up selling, I mean, if the trade negotiations go through, I mean, now we're getting a little bit into politics, but if the trade negotiations go through and they do allow Huawei to come to America, they will be handicapped phones. I mean, they're not going to allow a lot of their software. You're not going to have a Huawei store or anything like that. It's all going to be cut off. I think the biggest problem now is for users, either existing users or those who are looking to maybe buy the Mate 30 if it does come out. Should I buy it or will the US take away my access to Huawei's access to Google and Android? And right now, that has been resolved temporarily.
Sort of. I mean, they can. U.S. companies can sell the Huawei, but they cannot sell out, and they they can't use.
So
Android
right now it's like a case-to-case basis, and it looks like the Google issue has been solved for good.
Right.
They have a pass on it.
Right.
But of course they can't sell in the U.S. But that's being it's still a wait and see thing after the trade negotiations.
True. True.
But I mean, now people are worried about security. Now people are worried about the future, and it does kind of also set a bad precedent.
It's true, and I think we talked about this before. Is that you mentioned that they sort of dropped that seed already in people's mind with security.
Yes. Now people are always like, will I get, is Huawei spying on me? Is the Chinese government spying on me?
Yeah.
And whether or not there's proof, people may or may not believe that. So Huawei has a lot to overcome.
Yes.
And I still hope that they stay alive, because I hope to see what else they can give us.
I hope so too.
And I'm still hoping to see the Mate 30. It would be interesting. I mean, if there is, we don't need another operating system.
No,
but say we do, Huawei is in a good position to kind of make that happen. But I mean, come on, we don't really need that. But I would love for Google to protect itself too.
Yeah.
Because if Android is to be that operating system that powers the next billion smartphones, then it needs to be independent enough where it whether or not it's available can't be dependent on the whims of a government.
True. Agree.
Yeah.
You know, I think with that, Michael, Josh, I think that kind of wraps things up for us here. I mean, this has been, we could chat for hours.
I know.
mean, we could just do this and just grab a beer and just chat, or a coffee, depending if you drink or I don't know, do you drink?
I do.
You do? Okay. But no, thanks for coming by our studio. I mean,
thanks for having me.
And anytime you come into Singapore, you're always welcome back to come here. Anytime.
Thank
Anytime.
you. Okay, we'll do it.
Cool.
Deal. We'll shake on that.
Sounds good. All right, guys, hit us up in the comment section below. Any comments you have on what we talked about today, love to hear your feedback on it. Until the next one, take care.